Alright, guys. I hope you guys had a good day off yesterday. Um, Now, when it comes to your raft writing assignment, I hope you guys got a chance to finish that. You had the whole class period pretty much. So you should have had the majority of it done, if not fully completed it. And I hope you guys had some fun with it. I had some really good ones the first time, actually from your guys' class. So the first time that you guys did that assignment. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Now, for today, what we're going to talk about is we're still going to talk about simplifying those radical expressions, okay? Simplifying those square root signs, the fun stuff. But we're going to do something a little bit different here. Now, what we're going to start out with is an equation like this. So everybody should have their notes out, writing all this good stuff down, okay? Now, I know we went through this a little bit, but we're going to go through it again, okay? So if you want to go ahead and work this out, that you are more than welcome to. Now, when you have something like this, alarm should go off in your head, because this right here, we cannot have that in our denominator. Okay, to completely simplify it, we need to multiply it by what's called their conjugate. Okay. Now, let me look over here to my right. Okay, I'm just going to work the word conjugate. Okay. Conjugate. For example, if we looked at 2 plus the square root of 7 and 2 minus the square root of 7, these numbers are actually conjugates. Okay? If we multiply these two terms together, we get a rational number. Okay? If we multiply these two terms together, we get a rational number. Remember, rational number is not a number like 0.4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever. Okay? That's an actual rational number. Alright? If we multiply these two terms together, we get a rational number. So, this is all we're going to be working with, is multiplying. If you need to pause that, you can, but I'm going to clear this right side pretty much. Now, what we're going to be dealing with is these conjugates. Okay? So, let me finish erasing this. Okay. Now, look from the example that we just talked about. Okay. The conjugate of 5 plus the square root of 2 is 5 minus the square root of 2. Okay? So that's the conjugate of 5 plus the square root of 2. 5 minus the square root of 2 is the conjugate of that original number. Alright? So, we can use this conjugate to get rid of that square root of 2. Because remember, we cannot have that in our denominator or the bottom. That doesn't work. Okay? So, we can multiply it times the denominator. Now, what you do to the denominator, you have to do to your numerator. So if I'm going to multiply it by 5 times the square root of 2 in our denominator, I need to do it to our numerator. Alright? I need to do the same exact thing. Now when you do this, what you're going to have up top is 3 times the square root of 5 minus the square root of 2. Okay? And in our denominator, I want you to think of it as this. Because we're essentially multiplying it essentially it's almost itself. Take aside that minus. Okay? So what I want you to write, I want you to think of it as you're essentially you're doing 5 squared, because I'm multiplying 5 times 5. And if that's a negative conjugate right there, that's going to make my number a negative number here. Because remember, the negative takes precedence over the positive number. Okay? And I'm going to have a square root of 2. Essentially, that number is going to be squared, because I'm multiplying it by itself. So you can think of it as being squared, or I like to think of it as you're multiplying it by itself. Same exact way. So you can think about it either way. You're squaring it or you're multiplying it by itself. Same exact thing. Okay? So let's simplify this. Let's start working this thing out. Now, if you think you guys can handle it, go ahead and work ahead. Try to figure it out. Alright? First off, let's tackle that numerator. Let's distribute that 3 from there. So when you do that, that's going to give me a 15 minus a 3 times the square root of 2. Okay? Because that 3 is on the outside of the radical. I can't just multiply the 3 times 2 and then get the square root of 6. It's not going to work. So I'm done with my numerator. 5 squared is going to give me 25. What happens when this is the big concept. What happens when you multiply the square root of 2 times the square root of 2? What happens here? Now, if you remember our rules, since both of these are inside the radical, essentially all you're doing is multiplying 2 times 2. Okay? So, this is going to give you the square root of 4. Okay? Did everybody see that? Now, let's simplify it even more. Up top, let's just leave it there. Let's just leave that the same, because we can't simplify that anymore. Okay, we can't work anything else out up top. Can we work out the square root of 4? I hope everyone is whispering or saying, yes, we can. Okay, that turns into 2. Does everybody see that? So when I do this again, 25 minus 2 is going to give me a 23. Now this would be your answer. That's your answer. Because look at our number we have left. Look what we found. Do I have a radical in my denominator? No. Can I simplify this anymore? No. So I'm done. Okay? So this would be completely simplified. Does everybody see that? If you need to, you can pause the video and kind of finish up writing this stuff down. I'm going to go over a couple more examples. Now here's another example. Okay? If you feel comfortable with this, go ahead and try it out. Okay? Go ahead and try it out. Now, our big thing right here is Remember, cannot have that radical in our denominator. That is not going to work. That is a no bueno. Okay? So we need to simplify this thing. Now, if you remember correctly, we need to multiply it times the conjugate. Okay? If it's 2 plus the square root of 2 in our denominator, the conjugate of that would be 2 minus the square root of 2. Okay? That's all that is. All you really need to do is just change the sign of that middle of whatever this. You just essentially are changing the sign of that. If this is the positive, make this a negative and we're good to go. Okay? Don't worry about this front number. Don't worry about that leading number. Okay, don't worry about that. Just worry about that symbol, that plus right there, and then worry about that, changing that to a negative. Okay. Now, remember our basic rules of what we do to our denominator, we need to do to our numerator. I'm going to multiply it by the exact same thing. Okay. Now, let's start simplifying. When I have... I'm just going to kind of combine these terms. That's what I'm multiplying. Okay. Now, on the bottom, remember, I'm multiplying the 2 times the 2. So you can think of it as 2 squared. That's fine. This negative is going to take precedence. Okay. And then you're going to have the square root of 2 times the square root of 2. Same thing we had last time. So when we go to simplify this, we need to, first of all, distribute our numbers up top. Distribute that 3. Multiply it times 2, then multiply it times the square root of 2. When you do that, that's going to give you 6 minus 3 times the square root of 2. Alright? For our for our denominator, or the bottom, 2 squared is going to give me 4. 2 times the the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 gives me the square root of 4. Okay? So let's keep on simplifying. Up top, that's going to stay the same. Okay? Can't do anything with it. In the denominator, I can simplify that square root of 4. That's going to give me 2. Okay? Now, keep the numerator, the top, the same. 4 minus 2 gives me 2. Alright? Does that make sense? Now, this would be your answer. Okay? So let's kind of retrack our steps. Let's kind of run through this. So we started out with this original terms right here. Okay, we need to simplify this. This square root of 2 cannot happen. Okay? So this is where we multiply it by our conjugate. Essentially, all you do is just change that sign in the middle. If this is a positive, make it a negative. Okay? Now, when you do that, you need to multiply it times the numerator also. Right? Now, from here, all I did was kind of combine. I just kind of wrote it together. I multiplied 3 times 2 minus the square root of 2. And then in our denominator, if you multiplied this 2 times 2, it essentially gives me 2 squared. If I do the square root of 2 times the square root of 2, okay, all I did was just kind of rewrite it down here. Okay, for our numerator, I distributed the 3. 3 times 2, 6. 3 times the square root of 2, I just kind of wrote it down here. 2 squared gives me 4. Square root of 2 times the square root of 2 gives me the square root of 4. Our our numerator stays the same up here. Simplify 4 minus 2, and that gives me 2. Okay, and that would be your answer. Now, you can pause the video if everybody's not done writing this stuff down. Okay, here's another one. Now notice, I cannot have this square root of 7. Everybody should be writing this stuff down. Okay, that means everybody. It should be going in your notes, should have a pencil, should be having fun, should be writing this stuff down, because math is fun, always remember that. Okay. Now, we need to multiply it by our conjugate. So essentially, all I'm doing is changing that sign in the middle. What I do to my bottom, I do to my top. Exact same thing. Okay. Now I'm going to rewrite it down here. So I'm multiplying 7 times that, 3 plus the square root of 7. And I'm multiplying 3 times 3, so you can think of it as 3 squared. And then a minus square root of 7 times square root of 7. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and distribute that 7. That's going to give me a 21 plus 7 times the square root of 7. Okay. For my denominator, 3 squared is going to give me 9. And then square root of 7 times square root of 7 gives me the square root of 49. Okay. Now when I do this, nine minus this becomes 7. Square root of 49 is 7. 7 times 7 gives me 49. Okay. Lastly, I'm going to simplify that denominator. That's just going to leave me with 2. And that would be your answer. Okay. Making sense? Good. Okay, when everybody get their textbook out, turn to page 615. Okay. Now you're going to be doing numbers 11 through 16. Okay. All those deal with multiplying or using your conjugates to kind of essentially rationalize your denominator. Okay. So I want you guys to try those out. Now, after you guys get done with that, you should have your worksheet. From last week where we weren't able to finish all of those numbers. Okay, I want you guys to get that worksheet out. Now, the part about now you should be able to complete that whole thing. I know we completed all of one side. Now the other side is what we were not able to finish. Okay, now that workbook page. Write that in red. So WB, that stands for workbook. It is 10-2. So you should have that. Now what I want you guys to do is finish working out those problems. Should say page 12 at the bottom. Okay. So it should say page 12 at the bottom. Now we've got through the majority of those questions. We finished pretty much through everything, except the last couple of those deal with conjugates. Okay, where you're multiplying it times its conjugate. So I want you guys to finish that up and work through that. Now after you do page 615, that's what I want you doing first. I want you to finish working at that workbook page. It's actually workbook 10-2, then it says page 12 at the bottom. So do that second. Then lastly, if you get done through all those things, I want you to turn to page, now this is in your book, page 657, and you're going to be doing numbers 18 through 27. Okay? So I want you to go ahead and work through those. Now if you get through with that, make sure that you have your raft writing assignment done, so you can also work on that. And then, like I said, we'll be back Friday, so you have one more day. Now Thursday will be pretty similar to this. I'll record a video and post it so you guys can watch it. And then Friday, now we're not going to have a quiz Friday, but I expect you guys to work through this stuff, so that come Friday I can kind of run through it, and then we can kind of move on. So that's my plan. So I hope you guys have a good day. Have fun, not too much fun. Get this work done, work quietly. And if you have any questions, you guys can kind of replay the video. You can rewind it, have the substitute rewind it a little bit, and then you can kind of go from there. All right. Have a wonderful Wednesday.